We talk about India Defence Indigenization Plan, and we talk about the defence industry in our country, its role in the overall budget. The large percentage of our expenditure in the budget is allocated to defence. The defence industry takes up as much as 13.2% of Indian government's total budget expenditure. As we move forward towards a developed India in 2047, we have to focus on the defence industry, and that becomes even more crucial. In the last 5 years, the Indian government has spent $24 billion on defence imports. Will this statistic change as we steer towards developing our own artilleries, missiles and tanks? In recent years, we have witnessed many new Make in India equipment launched, such as the Tejas fighter aircraft, the Agni missile, the Dhanush artillery guns, the BrahMos missiles, the submarines and the warships. In addition to that, India has struck a whopping $375 million deal with Philippines, where the indigenous BrahMos missiles are going to be transferred to Philippines. Our defense exports have grown to a massive $2 billion yearly in defense. Keeping the Atmanirbhar Bharat defense mission in mind, how must India move forward in this mega plan of indigenizing India's defense prowess? Let's start off this conversation. Joining me on the telecast, Major General Sudhakar ji, good to have you. And of course, let's take a look back in the recent years and lord over the big achievements India has made when it comes to Atmanirbhar Defense Initiative. The latest one that comes to everybody's minds is, of course, the mega million BrahMos deal, where the export of our missile systems to Philippines has been the talk of the town.
Good evening, Megha. If that question is meant for me.
Yes, sir, it is for you.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for getting me to your show. I must compliment NewsX for picking up a theme which is of vital importance to nation building. When we talk about indigenization, we need to understand India has come a long way in past 75, 76 years post-independence. However, we got a wake-up call in 1962, and thereafter there has not been any looking back, although it is incrementally, very negligibly, it has been taking quantum jump in bits and pieces. But come the year 1983, India has looked ahead and gone in for a massive development of the projectiles or the missile system, call it Prithvi or its alternative in the Navy, or Akash, or talk about your Agni missiles. It has been a long development which actually has put India at par, I would say, if not better, with its adversary. We need to go a long way in this particular dimension. Alongside, India also has looked at domestic production of its third generation tank, the Arjun tank, which has come about. It's a very significant development, although there have been fits and starts in the development of this machine. We need to also look ahead in production of the light tank, which is the order of the day. If there is a threat along the northern border from China, it is the light tank which is going to invade into India before India can actually maneuver and outmaneuver the Chinese onslaught. So therefore, we need to focus on this. The mountain artillery are of very significant importance. Dhanush has been developed in India very effectively. It's a very effective weapon system, but the M777 of USA has given us very added advantage. Shoot and scoot is the concept which is going to enable Indian Army to actually fight in the mountains where the geography does not allow us to be in a deployment area and pull back from the deployment area after or on being detected by the enemy, go to another location in the shortest possible time. This particular gun system needs to be looked into. We are on our way to develop this particular thing of shoot and scoot artillery. Also, let me compliment the Indian Navy. We are one of the first amongst the global south to have developed an aircraft carrier Highness Vikrant, for the first time in independent India, everything has been developed indigenously. Compliments to our engineers, compliments to our scientists, and this is a commendable job that we have actually had up our sleeve. But the point that I wish to make here, Megha, is all good about indigenization, Atmanirbhar Bharat, everything is fine. But when you go to the nitty gritties, you made a very important, significant statement in your articulation. 13.2%. We should be mindful of the fact that when the central government expenditure is compared between 2012-13 with 2022-23, we come to realize one important factor, that the percentage of expenditure for defense budget has gone down from 16.47% to 13.2%. Out of this 13.2%, Mega, 3%, people call it as 2.7% of the GDP, which is an incorrect way of calculating what money is going into the budget. Or some people say it as 3%. Whatever the percentage may be, 60% of the total amount goes for import of the equipments. It's about time India has taken the right decision. We are in the right direction. Slow and steady will win the race. Obviously, indigenization is not a concept which is to be taught in the evening and next day you start reaping fruits. We need to wait, exercise
fair
patience,
enough. Yeah,
and also look ahead for brighter
that's the
prospects.
journey ahead. We've started it off. Could it have been done beforehand? Well, that's a question for discussion. And quickly also getting in Group Captain V and Jha into the discussion, and an example, an instance of India spending crores and crores of rupees of our exchequer in buying foreign equipment is the Rafale deal, where 8 billion US dollars was spent to get in these state-of-the-art fighters. How soon do you think our R&D departments, the DRDO, HAL are going to be equipped enough to be able to be a strong competitor and be these exporters of these highly sophisticated defense equipment, these artillery, these drones, and the missile systems, and then we also talk about the fighter jets, because that's where the game is. In fact, when the Prime Minister was visiting America in 2023, there were several of these deals that had been signed, and one amongst those was the transfer of technology, where India and Boeing are to work together, India and GE are to work together for that transfer of technology to take place. So it's a transition, but how long should this transition take?
Megha, to be frank, we should not be comparing what we were doing earlier and what we are doing now. As far as the defense production is concerned, what we were doing earlier was those productions mainly by the ordnance units. And the ordnance units, what they made the production in the yesteryears was, it was not worthwhile mentioning as a defense production or defense exports. It was, peanuts and things like that we were making there if we compare it today. But what we are talking today, just now, General Sudhakar spoke about it. See from 2 points of view. One is the Indian requirements in the entirety. In the entirety, there are 2 requirements. One is through the proper modernization plan, and second is the emergency plan. What you mentioned that in the last few years, we have made so much of requirements. Remember, it was post Galwan 2020 that we had to make a lot of purchases as an emergency, and just preceding that, Rafale procurement was also made something just like an emergency of procurement of 2 squadrons or Rafale squadron. That was not the proper modernization plan that should have gone along with the scale. So let's leave this Rafale procurement out, and then the emergency procurements, what was made post Galwan, because you may be aware, we were still having those SLR rifles. Our troops were having that SLR rifles, some even having that 303 INSAS. How could they would have fought? So salute to Modi government that within weeks, they procured, they were X-95, they gave LMGs, almost about 70,000 odd 103 AK-103 rifles. And like that, Sigma 716 G2 assault battlefield rifles, all these were the emergency procurement, and though they cost little, but when you buy 70,000 of it, 1,75,000 of it, it is a substantial purchase, procurement. Similarly, all those days of post-Galwan, many things were about that. Very few people know about it, and it won't be worth mentioning it here. So, but a lot of budgets had gone into that. Leave that aside. Now, let's come to the DRDO, what General Sudhakar tried to point out. See, the missile system is the one which has been designed and developed by DRDO, and production has been given through the PPP model, and people are, even the private agencies are producing some component of it, assembled it together, and then DRDO makes it available to the services. So it's a very complex system of procurement. Even leave that. Now we are entering an area wherein high-tech machines are coming into force. Example, LCA. Now each LCA, the cost is through the heavens. And when you procure that many, say 83 LCA in the first phase and another 95 LCA in the second phase, think of the amount of production value that it has gone. Right now we are talking of something like 1 lakh crore rupees worth of it, or 1,50,000 crore of it. But when it actually comes, those many squadrons of LCAs, those many squadrons of LCH, light combat helicopters, those many squadrons of the recent developed missiles, it's phenomenal. And coming back to the modernization plan, the Atmanirbhar plan, what even the army has done, we had of course bought M777 from USA, but then ULS 777, that's Indian made. L&T and some other companies, they have got into it, and that is far better than the original M777. Think of when the squadrons and squadrons of these ULS 777 that comes to the Indian Army, ATGM, multi-barrel rocket system, Sarang artillery system, you name it, that is there. And finally, the Indian Navy, in the last, about 7-8 years, there have been immense amount of naval procurement, be it submarine, ships, the destroyers. Of course, he had mentioned about the aircraft carrier. That's a state of the art, and each aircraft carrier is a fortune in amount of the cost when we are talking about the cost. So, if we are looking at short sight, say financial year 2025. I think we will. It was earlier looking as a very very high up budget of keeping around 1,75,000 crore rupees. But today it looks quite possible. We may even exceed that. And in the coming years, I'll just take 30 seconds. In the coming years, when we are talking of 25, 26, 27, 28, look at the amount of the exports as well as the defense production. It will be, colossal that we can think of. We will be proud of it.
Okay. Dr. H.B. Srivastava, if we take a look at how the global economies function, whether it is America or China or Israel, and take a look at France and several other countries. Now, the revenues that they generate, the receipts that they get for their annual budgeting, we talk about the foreign trade, to a large percentage, they are able to export their defense equipment, arms and ammunition, weapons that form a large chunk of revenues that are then generated. Vis-a-vis, when you take a look at a number of developing countries, and India is no exception, because we are the largest exporters of wheat and rice and other of these grains. So, is there at this time a need to be building our capabilities in defense, in manufacturing the defense equipment, manufacturing these stealth fighters, these submarines, the aircraft carriers and missiles, to be able to garner more amount of funds by way of selling these equipment to the world and thereby fixing our trade deficit that we continue to face?
Yes, good question, Megha. First, we need to set the perspective as to what we want to achieve. And in my opinion, that can be set very straightforward by the aspiration that the country has. Today, we are the fifth largest economy, and we want to become third largest economy by something like 2030 or 2027, something like that. So the defense exports must also be in equivalence to whatever the status in economy that we have. So today our exports are something like 1.9 billion US dollars in 2022-2023. That is the figure that has come out, 1.9 billion US dollars. But if we need to be fifth largest exporter, this value should have been something like 6 billion. And by 2030, if we want to become the third largest economy, this value must go to something like 15 to 20 billion US dollars. And what General was telling, that this thing does not happen overnight, that we dream today evening and tomorrow it will happen. The developments take some time. Developments are the solving the problems that are unknowns. So if you solve the unknowns, then you make a new system. And for getting onto the places where I am talking to you about 6 billion US dollars or 15 billion US dollars, we need to have two things to be done. One is the capacity and capability enhancement. And second is the launching of multiple platforms, development of platforms in R&D and in the production agencies along with academia. And all this requires money. Now, in our budget so far, we have been having this what is known as GERD, gross expenditure on research and development. For last many years, it has been hovering something like 0.6% of the GDP. And if you look at the defense R&D budget, it comes to something like 0.1%. Or even less probably. So we need to enhance this value, and this value must get into the development of large new technologies. Those technologies can be airborne AMCA, these can be high power electromagnetic weapons, these could be quantum technologies, quantum communications, and there are a whole lot of technologies that are waiting for investment. One point is that the government invests through the budgetary support. Another is that the private industry also supports the R&D. And that will happen when we have the conducive policies where the cost of IP is also given to the industry. We don't beat them down in cost to such a low price that they will not be able to sustain the R&D activity. Production they will sustain, but R&D they will not be able to sustain. So the budgetary support, larger budgetary support to go up to something like 1% to 2%. In fact, you talked about France and Israel and all those countries. Israel is spending 4.8% GERD. USA is spending about 3%, 2.9%, something like that. If you look at the real numbers, this percentage of economy is one. But if you look at the real number, the China and the USA, the economies are much larger than ours. And therefore, the actual numbers will be much larger. So if we need to really compete with those countries, France, China, and others, I think we need to invest more in capacity building, capability building, and launching of projects. That is what I think it must happen.
Okay. So, can India be termed as a country that exports weapons at a prestigious tag be attached to us, talking about how India can become a primary exporter? Is there potential for India to fulfill that dream?
There's a huge potential. As I said, you also told this BrahMos missile. We made BrahMos missile and we are able to sell it to East Asia countries. We have many other missiles that can go. ATAGS, the artillery gun, is getting exported. We have Dhanush also that can get exported. There are large number, Pinaka is getting exported. LCA is having potential to export. There are huge number of platforms that we can export. And we also have the capability, the country's R&D and the industry both have the capability to develop certain equipment that are actually required by some other friendly countries. So if we orient our activities towards world market, if we don't restrict only to Indian market, if we orient to world market where India is also one country to be procuring from Indian companies, and along with the whatever is this South Korea is doing in the same way. For them, the whole world is market. I think we need to look at that, and then the economy of scale also will come. There is a huge potential.
Okay. Okay, all right. On that note, I thank all of you for joining me on the telecast. It's a long way ahead. We are moving leaps and bounds, and of course, all eyes are going to be on the budget tomorrow and an understanding of how our Atmanirbhar Defence initiative is going to gain speed and how much of it will be allocated in the budget to spread our wings and fly high.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.